Hey guys, it's Iblis here of the Baron's Finest, getting you all a deck profile. This should be the 11th day that I'm doing this constant stream of deck profiles. We'll be going on a bit of a hiatus, I believe, roughly around January-ish time, but I figured, hey, I'm going to try and actually do the whole 12 days thing, but I am stopping on the 23rd, so this should be going up on the 22nd if I held true to this correctly. But without further ado, we're going to get you guys one of the Vanguard deck profiles. I'm going to try and hold off on this for at least doing too many Vanguard deck profiles. But I figured that I wanted to do this. Plus, I did not do this post the, what's the set? The comic booster. There we go. Vanguard and the leader. I didn't do it post then. So I figured now's as good a time as any to do it, if not better. Plus, we've been having a lot of Continentals and stuff go up. So I figured you guys might want to see a casual deck list compared to a competitive one. But without further ado, let's go and get started. So, to begin, we play Wingo Brave as our starter. Free starter. We have a Blaster Grade 1 now, but the skill, for people who don't know, is it has Forerunner, and when it boosts a Blaster unit and the attack hits, it doesn't have to hit Vanguard, just hit in general. You move it to Soul, search your deck for any Blaster, and then add it to your hand. This is actually a really good skill, because not only are we able to... excuse me. Not only are we able to enable this on first swing now, we actually can also swing for a grade 1, which the deck could not do before. The deck has always had an issue with grade 1s. It's always relied on the front row, but the back row has always been weak. It's always like high row has been a hard matchup for Royal Paladin, in my personal opinion. At least, outside like St. Guard, because St. Guard kind of gets around that. But Wingo Brave does do a lot. I actually thought about playing 2 of this card, believe it or not, because of how much high utility it has. But I figured one was fine, plus I like a lot of the text stuff that I have in here. Well, not a lot of the text stuff, because I don't have a lot of text, but for triggers, we actually play 7 critical triggers. Play Seekers. Seekers are important, and we'll get into why. We also play the 5 draw triggers, with 4 Margot, 1 Platinum Rider. As a note, if you decide not to run a certain grade 2 I am running, I would actually highly encourage you to drop every Margle for more Platinum Seekers or Messergal Seeker, the other draw trigger that Seekers have. I'm only running the Margles because they give me Soul, which I do kind of Soul Blast in this deck. But otherwise, if you don't opt to run a certain card that does Soul Blast moderately consistently, I would cut the Margles immediately for more Seeker triggers. And then, last but not least, we play 4 heals. Again, Seeker triggers. Seeker triggers are important. But that does it for the trigger ratio. 7 crit, 5 draw, 4 heal. It's my preference of triggers. I really do like the 7-5. MLB did go 6-6 for a while, but I felt with 6-6, I just kept drawing draw triggers off my draw triggers, and I even now do that sometimes, but, I'm going to keep the 7-5 because I do like the ability to draw into my deck. For the ones we play for Holy Knight Guardian, which is the unflipped PGG, or Perfect Guard Gender, like the PGG, or GPG as I hear some people call it. If you don't opt to run these and want to play the original kind of PG, because of the fact that you want to protect your rear guards, play the Seeker PG, because 1, Seeker Counterblast, and 2, the fact that it does protect rear guards, and plus you can't really be OG with Flash Shield Assault, because of the wording of Flash Shield Assault, and it didn't get eroded in Fighters Collect, or not, I can't want to say Fighters Collection, because my mind is just wrapped around like the news still coming out at the time of recordings for 2015 winter, but Flash Shield Assault can't protect Shadow Paladins, aka Blaster Dark, and you can't discard Shadow Paladins, aka Blaster Dark. So, if you don't opt to run these, run the Seeker ones, don't try and be OG and run Flash Shield Assault, I will tell you this right now. We also play 3 Stride Fodder. I cut one of these in favor of some of the other grade 1s I wanted to play, because the grade 1 lineup really changed a lot. I feel like that's probably actually what changed the most in this entire deck. A lot of my numbers changed. I added a lot of new stuff, but this is about like what you're going to see that's mostly the same. I also wound up teching in the 1 Lake Main Leon, which I am slightly in debate about cutting. I liked the 3 in the past, but because of other grade 1s I wanted to play, I had to cut this to 1, unfortunately, but, you have to do what you have to do. This might go out. I'm halfway to cut it, especially post GBT05, GBT05, because Chaos Breaker is kind of a problematic matchup, and there is one that if I'm understanding it correctly, can technically get around Chaos Breaker, but I'm not quite certain depending on like how certain interactions work, and I could be wrong. But I'll have to like learn the ruling. We also actually play 2 Righteous Seeker Gungaren. Gungaren is the OG Knight of Shield Bash. Actually, when it attacks Vanguard, it goes up by 2k. The reason we play this is because we can actually call this from deck. It gives us it's more Seeker Counterblast, so it's better than Knight of Shield Bash. And to be fair, it also technically makes so your turns where you ride Alfred, because this is MLB Alfred, it makes your, like when you have to first ride Alfred, it makes it a little bit better. And again, it's a Seeker, you can call off Alfred, and I'll say that I guess that's kind of the spoiler of the deck. A lot of things were built around Alfred in this deck because of how powerful of a card Alfred actually is. And then the last card we wound up playing is 3 Swordsman of Light, Blaster Appear Laura. Laura has a really subpar skill. It's if you have a King and Knight's Alfred in the same column as it, it gives that Alfred plus 1k, and it gives your Vanguard, and it has resist. This is actually a really good card. I do like it a lot. Yes, I hate the skill outside the resist factor. I admit it's pretty, like, outside of that it's worthless, but it is a blaster grade 1, meaning that it both triggers Wingle Brave and becomes a target for Wingle Brave, and is actually what I'm debating about cutting the Lake Maiden Leon for the 4th one of. I was testing Swordsman of Light Junos, when you call something from deck, when you call something off a skill or deck, I'm not sure which one it is, but you call when you have an Alfred Vanguard, it goes up to a 12k booster. I didn't like it in testing. It wasn't really that good for me. I found that just because I do sit on MLB, I try and sit on MLB most of the game, and then finish with Alfred. Or I'll sit on MLB, stride a bunch, and then eventually go into Alfred if it's late enough game. But that is typically what I do. Laura, though, I do really like it because it is a resist. It makes your Shadow Paladin matchup awkward in the sense that because of the fact that it has resist, they can Diablo you, and every Laura you have as a unit you can't retire. So it does technically make that awkward, but it is immune to the Abysses. It technically is somewhat immune to Kagero. They can Root Flare it, and depending on how your columns are set up, they can still Neo Flame you and stuff. But it's still pretty good. I like Laura. Might be playing a 4th, I don't know. But that is it for the ones. It should be... Yeah, it's 13 ones. I just wanted to make sure, because I remember like how many 2s I was playing. But I want to make sure I had the right amount of ones, so it's 13 ones. For the grade 2s, we play 4 copies of Blaster Blade, the OG Blaster Blade. This card is actually really good. For people who don't know, this card does Legion with Alfred Exive. Read Exive, guys. But it is technically one of our Legion mates. I honestly think in MLB Alfred, it is a mandatory 4-up. Not because I think it's that exceptional of a card, but 1, it's your Legion mate. 2, you're going to shove it into Sulfur MLB. And not to mention, the card is technically something you just want to have access to. You need to see Blaster Blade. It's really important that you see Blaster Blade along with OG Blaster Dark, which is the 2nd grade 3 you run. I did opt to run 3 Blaster Dark instead of 4. I didn't want somebody... I technically have a decent amount of vanillas depending on what my Vanguard is. And not to mention, Dark is vanilla on call to rear guard. It doesn't do anything on rear. It's just there, but it's not a bad card. I actually really do like it, admittedly, as my first grade 2 ride if I can help it, and it's usually one of the first thing I search off Wingle Brave, because of the fact that it gives you a strong ride. It is CB to retire something, which is, the fact that you can retire back row is kind of nice, because not really any other Royal deck can do that. So you have, in theory, multiple ways to retire opponent's rear guards. The deck kind of has that element to it, but it's not exactly the focus of the deck. But this is a fairly aggro deck. And we actually are playing a little bit more than just the 7 blasters. We actually made 9 in the 2 copies of Blaster Blade Seeker. I wish I had a 2nd LR, but Blaster Blade Seeker, because of the fact that we wanted, again, more Seekers to call. It's more Seeker Counterblast, so it also enables us. Plus, this is another Legion made for Alfred. We have methods of getting this card off. It does do things for us. It's a really good card. It's also a really strong ride. This is actually my favorite ride to go for grade 2 if I'm going to ride MLB. Unless my opponent wants to play the grade 2 game with me, where I'm going to keep riding Blade and Dark over each other. until where I have to the point where I'll have both in Soul. But Blade Seeker is pretty good. It's basically Blaster Blade, but it's Blaster Blade's on-call to rearguard skill, but it does it for 1 CB less, and you just specifically need a Seeker Vanguard, which, to be fair, the majority of your grade 3s are technically Seekers due to ratios. So this is actually a really good card, and plus you're free to call it. It's fine just to call this thing on rearguard and then swing with it. It's not like you're losing a whole lot by doing it, compared to certain game states where if you call like Blaster Blade or Blaster Dart, you're just gonna have a bad time. For the rest of the 2s, because we have 4 more, I play the 2 copies of Knighted Twin Sword. I hear some people don't like this card. I still think it's phenomenal. Most Royal builds run this for a reason. It's free board. CB1 when it's boosted, you get a free unit. I don't see a problem with it. It's just a generically good card. We also play the 1 Starlight Violinist. Violinist could in theory be 2, but I found that 1 Violinist is a little bit better in my opinion, just because of the fact that, like, you want a unit early enough in the game, but you don't want to be soul blasting too much, not to mention, like, there's a point where swarming actually can kind of be weird with some of your skills, because this deck focuses so much on swarming on the G2, or swarming G2s. Not to mention it's also an AK base, so it's technically not that good. And the fact that, you know, sometimes you don't want to soul blast too much, but which I guess is contradictory to the last card, but it's also why I said I was going to be playing the Margles. I played the 1-of Tekgal. Tekgal's skill is that when it essentially becomes a G2 booster, Soul Blast 1, rest it, when a unit in front of it swings at anything, you can pay the cost and have Tekgal give its power to the unit in front of it. So it becomes an AK booster. It's essentially playing like an AK vanilla that just a Soul Blast 1, but it is a 2, which I like, so technically I can call it from deck and have more boosters. And again, Tekgal is the reason I play Margle. If you opt not to run Tekgal, I would immediately remove the Margles, like I said, for more Seeker triggers. And yeah, Seekers are good. Another of the grade 2 I was considering playing and I was testing for a while, which I did like, was Valrod, the 12k vanilla for Seeker. It wasn't bad, I did like it. You could definitely play it. It might actually be worth playing again. I might cut the Tekgal for it. But I do like the 13-2s just because of how much calling of 2s from deck you do. And then for the last 3s, we play 4 copies of Lightsworn Seeker, Alfred Exive, Legions with Blaster Blade or Blaster Blade Seeker. Yes, guys, it Legions with Blaster Blade. Don't say my deck doesn't work. If I tell you I can Legion with Blaster Blade, everybody always says that whenever they look at this deck list. But Legions with Blaster Blade or Blaster Blade Seeker, it's actually not terrible if you say ride Blaster Dark as your grade 2, and then you ride Exive to Legion with Blaster Blade, and then ride MLB on top of it. Yeah, you're kind of negging some 3s in the process, but at the same time, you do get the Soul setup, which is another mechanic that you can do. It also gives you more Soul to Soul Blast out for Tekgal or Violinist if you need to. But this card is actually really devastating. This also lets you swarm a little bit, because it calls once from deck with it, which the deck can't do otherwise, because we're not doing a Jewel Knight engine, we're not playing Benin, we're not playing Sword Me, we're not doing that kind of mechanic. But the deck has the option to by playing just simply playing Seeker triggers. Not to mention you also play Gungarin over Knight of Friendship K, which I guess is something else I should discuss really quickly. I'll go and find him real quick. Yeah, this card. Thing about this card real quickly, because people will say, oh, well, K swings for 17 at rear guards if you have pretty much any grade 1 in K swinging, and while you only have 14 versus, like, or, you know, it becomes a 14, like, 14 on swinging at rear, and then 16 swinging at van compared to 17 all around. It doesn't make a whole lot of difference. You still need magic numbers on rear guards unless it's at a 10k vanilla, which, to be fair, most people are only playing 3 10k vanillas anyways. It's not like, and even then, like, a lot of people are not leaning towards 10k vanillas anymore for some reason. And it's only, even then, only super common in Stride Break decks. But this is also a Seeker that you can run, and again, K's cute, but it doesn't get you a whole lot further compared to Gungarin. And then the last card of the deck is Majesty, Lord Blaster. No limit break or anything, it's just free skill. You shove Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark And they have to specifically be Blaster Blade and Blaster Dark. It can't be like Blaster Blade Seeker, or Blaster Blade Spirit, or anything. You move them to Soul when he swings, and then Majesty Alert Blaster always sits at an additional 2k, making it a 12k base and a crit. I will say right now the 12k base will be negated if you stride, so you're striding on top of a 10, not a 12. And then when you do the whole battle skill where you move Blade and Dark into Soul, it gets an additional 10k for that battle, so it'll swing for 22 on its own during the battle that you use his skill. Don't try and do it multiple times a game unless you're really desperate to go for it and you can't stride or anything. Plus, his 12k is honestly one of the best defense mechanisms in the game, due to the fact that because of how we lack, for the most part, 8k vanillas, and sure, 10ks do exist, but point being, the ideal, most rearguard columns will swing 416 anyways. So by having the 12k base, you automatically go up to 17 the instant you drop a 5k shield, which is really good. It saves you so much card advantage, despite the fact that you have to neg 2 cards. In the long run, it pays out. And then that does it for the 3s, and then we enter the G zone. We do play the only 2 1-0s we play are 1 Shrouded Divine Knight Blade, and then 1 Divine Knight of Flashing Flame Samuel. These are really good strides. Blade is, I would say, probably one of your ideal first stride, depending on how your board's set up. On hit, get a grade 2 from deck. It's really basic. And then Samuel is essentially one of the most aggro strides in the game, and I love this card. I have sworn by Samuel since GBTO2 first dropped. When it swings, if you have a full board, CB2, if your opponent's at 4 or less damage, ding them for 1. It does perform a damage check, so it's not as good as Dragon Nude's ding, but it still creates a scary card. Doing this on 3 is actually okay. I used to have the mentality of only wanting to do it on 4, but the reason it's okay to do it on 4, or when they do it on 3, is because it does make it less likely that if they hit a heal trigger, it'll actually go off. But the other factor is that when you swing, the Vanguard in theory will hit for the 5th damage. If you hit any crits, you pretty much just end the game right there. And not to mention, it essentially is almost like getting an additional attack off, which you have some battle phase tricks on this deck, and I would recommend looking at Vanguard deck profiles for how to do it. But because Vanguard is more consistent in how you get the multiple attack thing off, but it acts like an additional attack, which is another reason why I love Samuel. For the rest of my strides, 2 Aerial Divine Knight Alt Mile. I was admittedly really iffy on this card once it actually got revealed, but I just started fiddling around with it, and I actually really like it. It's free board. It's a free pump to the front row, which is super good. It makes it so any grade 2 on its own can hit nearly any grade 3, minus any grade 3 at cross-ride numbers, but to be fair, the only 2 semi-relevant cross-ride numbers are Knucklebuster and Venus Lucier, so you're fine just to not really be worrying about it. And to be fair, you can swing for 12 at rear guards at that point, and one of your units is going to get a massive buff depending on what you call from deck. So I love Aerial Divine Knight Alt Mile. The other grade 4 we play is or the stride, I should be saying. Why am I saying grade 4? Is Holy Dragon, Saint Blood Dragon. Excuse me for 1 moment, guys. There we go. Saint Blow. It's like one of the first royal strides we've ever had. Persona flip it. You get 3k for every unit faced up, and then if you have 2 more rear guards and the number of face-up units in your G zone is 2 or more, it gets a crit. It's a really massive swinger. There is a card you alternatively can play in this card's place that might be better posed the Chaos, or once we enter the Chaos Breaker format again. Which I admit, I've never really played against Chaos Breaker, so I don't know how important it'll be. But I'll go and talk about it in just a second, because I want to finish up the G lineup. And then the last card is 2 copies of Holy Dragon Religious Soul Saver. CB1 Persona Flip, pick 3 units on board, give them 5k. If you have 2 or more blasters in your soul, well, you have to have a blaster heart to do that. And if you have 2 or more blasters in soul, it gets a crit. This is technically the MLB stride. And for people who don't know the ruling on this card, if you are, I guess the ruling in general, if you're in Legion with Alfred X Eve in either Blaster Blade or Blaster Blade Seeker, you can pick Alfred as your heart, You'll meet the requirements for having a blaster in your heart. It doesn't have to be your active heart for the card. So it does still trigger everything as long as you meet all the requirements for it. So being Legion, you can stride this on top of Alfred, and as long as you have the 2 Alfred or the 2 blasters in soul, you get a crit. So it does work. And I guess to talk about this really quickly, in the upcoming format post GBT05, or even now, I guess if you really want to, because Messiah might be a big thing in your area, or just Link Joker in general, another option over Saint Blow is Transmigratory Dragon, Holy Squire Dragon. I don't have a second one yet, but I'm working on it. Holy Squire's skill is that once per turn, you can persona flip a copy of itself. Unlock all. If you have specifically have to have an Alfred, which kind of makes it weird in the sense that you can't stride this over MLB, which I kind of like doing with Saint Blow because I like striding Saint Blow over MLB where it comes up a lot. You flip it face up. You have the Alfred heart. Unlock all of your locked cards. Then all of your rearguards will get plus 2k, and then at GB3, this dude gets 3k for each of your rearguards, and that's and those are both continuous skills. So when you swarm your board and stuff, your board gets bigger. It's not like, oh, I unlock and then the units active get power. This card is admittedly really good. I like Holy Squire on paper at least. I haven't actually tested it, but it is a friend of mine, Albert Wong, has been trying to tell me to play Holy Squire over Soul Saver, over Saint Blow. It is something that could work. I would just need to actually test it, but I need to get the second one, and I'm probably not going to test it as much until that set drops, because Link Joker is not big in my area, so, and plus to be fair, I'm not probably going to be playing this in any big tournaments anyways. But yeah, I figured it was at least worth discussing that really quickly. So, I guess that does it for this deck profile, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give me some feedback. I'd love to hear it. It does mean a lot to me for you guys to give me the feedback that you guys do. It's really nice. I like the discussions. And I'm sorry if I ever sound egotistical in the comments or anything when it comes to replying to you guys, but I think... Let's get a little bit of IQ here real quick. Perfect. I like this. I like this a lot. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, that's going to do it for this deck profile, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Please be sure to leave me some feedback. Tomorrow's deck profile will be Yu-Gi-Oh! For certain. I know what I'm doing for the last day of this entire thing regardless. But I figured you guys would enjoy this deck profile. Some of you requested it back a while ago with the whole Soul Saver, Pongo concept. I just never got around to it. But yeah, I figured that's going to be doing it for this deck profile, guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll stop blabbering now, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.